Let's do. All right, good morning, folks. How you doing this morning? I'm going to open up the chat box because sometimes I'll be talking to myself and I won't know about it. So I'm going to open up the chat box, and if you guys can just let me know that you can hear me okay, that I'm coming through okay, and my internet is all right, I appreciate it. Okay, so opening up the chat box here, you can hear. Okay, very good. Good morning, everybody. Hope this is a great morning for you. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. We're going to be talking about some few things here, and at the end of the session, I'll be giving away this composition scale, the scale that everybody wanted to have a chance to win, and we'll do that again this after this as well to give somebody a chance to win for next week. But the problem is that you got to be here in order to win. So when I call your name, we'll go down through the ones that I pull, and if you're here, you get it. If you're not here, then we'll move on to the next person. All righty. Let's see. All right. So just to test my chat box again, I want everybody who's feeling good, just kind of put in there that you're feeling good this morning. Number two, the second thing I want you to do is to let me know if you've exercised this morning. Okay. And number three, if you hadn't exercised, I want to know if you're going to exercise today, because our goal is to talk about a little bit about the exercise today. We're going to talk a little bit about a whole bunch of things, and I'm going to try to do what you guys asked me to do, is to keep it simple. Because when I go into the biochemistry and things of that nature, I have to do a little bit of that just to kind of keep my mind stable. But one of my patients says, "Doc, you gotta explain it to me at a third grade level," and I get that. I tell people that all the time. Explain it to me at a third grade level, and that makes it easy for all of us. Okay, so everybody's feeling good. Somebody says, "I pray I exercise." Okay, feeling great. Yes, I did exercise. Feeling good. I'll be walking today. Feeling amazing. Going for a walk after the meeting. Got up a little late this morning. All right. So people will exercise. They have exercise, or they're thinking about exercising, or they're praying about exercising. Okay. Well, all that's good. So today we're going to be, I'm going to again try to stick to a timeline. So I'm going to be kind of going rapidly, but some of the things that I'm going to want you to concentrate on, I'm going to go over. I may explain it in technical terms, but then I'm going to go over it in third grade terms. And then I'm going to go over it again, because there are certain things that are so important that I don't want you to leave this session or the next session without really absorbing it. Some of the things that people wanted me to talk about, and I'll touch a little bit on the cholesterol issue. People who have cholesterol problems, put it in the chat box. You don't have to, but if you're interested in how we control our cholesterol, or how does our cholesterol go up in the first place? Is it genetic? No, not necessarily. It could be, but not necessarily. If you have lipoprotein A, again, there I go with those words again, right? But if the genetic component is, yeah, if my parent had lipoprotein little a and I got lipoprotein little a, yeah, I'm going to have high cholesterol. Not a whole lot I can do about it other than to take the medicine. All right. So I'm not poo-pooing the medicine, but the majority of us here can handle our cholesterol with what we're eating. Now, is it going to happen next week? If I tell you what to do today, and I am, is your cholesterol going to get better next week? No. Next month? No. It's got to be a chronic use of the diet that I'm going to give you that's going to allow your cholesterol to go down. So, the thing that I want to get across here today is primarily because I've been superficially covering a lot of things. And I've assumed when I say certain things that people understand what I'm talking about. And again, that same patient that told me to explain at the third grade level says, "Doc, don't assume that we know anything. Just because it rolls off your tongue, don't assume that we know it." And I get it. I get it. But let me just tell you one thing. When you go to your doctor and your doctor tells you stuff and you're silent, they assume that you're knowing what they're talking about. So it's a common problem, and the problem has to come to an end. And we as physicians have to be the ones that start bringing this problem to the end. Because we'll give you a 15-minute, 20-minute, even a 30-minute visit. And if you don't ask any questions, okay, they understood. We've got to we've got to stop that. We've got to take the time, ask you, do you understand? And that's what I'm going to do today. Do you understand this? Because when I talk about things, simple things to me, they're not going to be simple to you. And and I get that because when I go to I don't know, my accountant. And they start explaining to me all these things, and they're just assuming that I learned that in school somewhere, and I'm silent. They think that I understood what they just said. And then they wonder why I didn't do a certain thing during my taxes and things of that nature. Because they say, well, I explained that to you, Doc. Yeah, I didn't understand it. So I get it. All right, enough of that. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my slides. Let me see if anybody says anything in the chat box that I started the cholesterol meds, but I stopped it. I think I can use diet to get it checked. You can. Unless, again, your main thing is you want to make sure you don't have the genetic component. Because if you have the genetic component, the diet helps, sure, but we don't want to take that risk. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's see. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of things. I'm going to share my slides now. If I can figure it out. Share. Hmm. This is what I wanted. All right. So I'm going to be talking about, yeah, protein, fiber, and healthy fats, right? So you're going to see the Spanish interpretation at the bottom. It'll teach you how to learn how to speak Spanish. I use that to kind of help me learn how to speak Spanish as well. I'm getting better at it. Te enseñará a ayudarme a aprender español también. All right. So today we're going to be talking about protein, fiber, and healthy fats. That's the title of the webinar, but the subtitle is the most important. We're losing muscle mass, right? So I'm losing weight, but as long as we're losing weight, it's okay, right, to lose muscle mass. I'll read that again. We're losing muscle mass. So what? As long as I'm losing weight, that's okay. So the thing is that last time I talked about we're concentrating on the scale. We've had these scales in our houses for decades. And they become sort of like our Bible as far as our health is concerned. We're losing weight, we're doing great, right? But no, that's not the case. As I found out that more and more people, as they come back to me after surgery, before surgery, or if they're just using the medicines for weight loss, as long as they're losing weight, they think that they're doing great. And the majority of them are losing a significant amount of muscle mass. So when I said that last time, and when I said that each time, I'm thinking that everybody pretty much knows that losing muscle mass is a bad thing. But they don't. And so if you lose muscle mass, let me get it clear today. If you're losing muscle mass, that's a bad thing. How much muscle mass can we safely lose that will not be a bad thing? Well, the data out there is pretty clear, but there's not really clear on a number. But there are certain parameters and certain studies that have shown that losing X% of muscle mass will really impact your health negatively. And so I'm going to say that several different ways because when I tell people that, okay, fine, you take this drug or you do this and you lose 20% of your muscle mass, up to 40% of your muscle mass, which is what some of the GLP-1 drugs do in their trials, the Sermon trial, the STEP trial. When they do that, people just say, okay, well, now next topic. So it made me stop and think, are you understanding what I'm talking about? When I'm saying losing 20% of muscle mass and you're not excited about that, or you're not like, whoa, seriously, doc? Then I've not done a good enough job to explain to you because losing 20% of your muscle mass is not a good thing at all. It increases your probability that you're going to have more glucose sitting around in your bloodstream. That causes insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? Well, it's the thing that kind of ages you. It causes diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea. It causes all the things that we're talking about. It increases your all-cause mortality, means that you're going to die of cancer, diabetes, and I don't want to get morbid here, but you're going to die prematurely of what before you want to die. So the whole goal of this channel is basically for you to know certain things so you can live not necessarily a longer life, but that is my goal. But what's the point of living longer if you don't have a quality of life? So our primary goal is to live more healthy, increase our health span. Our secondary goal is to enjoy that health span longer. So in other words, I don't want to be 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old in a nursing home. No. I want to be able to take care of myself and then just, hey, have the kids come over, come over and say, hey, listen, let's have some dinner. And I'm 100 years old. I'm doing the cooking. That's quality of life. That's health span. That's what we're going for. All right. So when I talk about losing muscle mass, can cut that down, can cut that quality off because you stepped off a curve and broken your hip at the age of 70. And then we know that your mortality rate increases exponentially at that time after you've broken your hip. We want to change that narrative. We want to basically make things better. So it starts with muscle mass. And I'm going to tell you the second most important thing that we've glossed over the past several sessions. Muscle mass is probably the number one thing that we need to protect. So if you go to your doctor, you come to me and we put you on that scale and says you've lost 10% of your muscle mass. All right. That's a cautionary flag. You're gonna say, whoa, what do I need to do? We've got to do some things. And it ain't walking. Because every time we talk about exercising, we're talking about doing the zone 2 walking. I get it. I push that. And that's the thing that I want you to do as well. But we've totally negated the fact that we need to do resistance training. So we've glossed over that. People say, yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, I just did my walking. I'm tired now. I don't want to do resistance training. You got to do resistance training, ladies and gentlemen. You got to do it 2 to 3 times a week. I have my bench over there, which I'll show it to you. Well, and basically, I just lift some free weights. If I don't want to feel like lifting the free weights, I'll do some push-ups. If the push-ups are too hard for me, I'll do wall push-ups. I'll do the girl push-ups on my knees. But I have to engage my major muscle groups. I'll do air squats. So you have to, don't spend any money to go get things from Target or weights and all that. You don't have to do that. You can get some resistance bands. Well, I guess that's spending money, but you can use your own body weight. My point. Okay. Okay. I got to get going because I said I wasn't going to do this. All right. Here we go. We're losing muscle mass, right? So the questions for you today. All right. If I get this little thing out the way so I can see the questions. What is GLP-1? Well, this is just a review. Okay. So we know what that is. What are the three main functions of GLP-1? Why do we want GLP-1 activated? All right. All right. And since we want GLP-1, glucagon-like polypeptide 1, that's one of the answers. Since we want GLP-1 activated, what can we eat to activate it? Gave you another answer. It's food that activates it. It's not anything that we do, exercise and all that stuff. It doesn't strongly activate it. The most common strong thing that activates GLP-1 is the food we take in. All right. And it has to be a certain type of food. There are certain types of foods that blunt it or that turn it off. So there are certain types of food. If we want GLP-1 to be activated in our body, people say, what is he talking about? How's he getting Wegovy activated in his body? Or how is he getting Mounjaro activated in his body? No, I'm talking about you guys are the people that made the GLP-1. The scientists found out that how you were losing weight, and they said, let's see if we can duplicate that. That's where the medicines came from. This medicine is not a miraculous discovery. They didn't get a Nobel Prize for it. You made it. You're making it right now. You're making it most commonly in your intestinal tract. All right. That's where most of your GLP-1 producing cells live, in your intestinal tract, in your small intestine, the upper part and the lower part, and in your colon. All right. Three areas that and each one of the food groups activates a different area. You're going to see that in a minute. Okay. So why do we want GLP-1? We'll explain that in a second. What does GLP-1 do, and how do we get it activated? Those things are important. What are seed oils? Seed oils, I'm going to tell you the answer to this. Seed oils are the things that we're taking in most commonly in our meal. Rather than taking in the three macronutrients that you're supposed to take in that come from whole foods, we're substituting most of the things we're taking in with seed oil products, things that come in a can, things that come in a box, pretzels, crackers, cookies, pasta. All of those things have seed oils in it. The most common seed oil, soybean oil. Look at the package. If it has soybean oil on it, stop eating it. Why? Soybean oils do the exact thing that we don't want it to do. It turns off that thing we just talked about. It turns off the GLP-1. Won't get into how it turns it off. It's very, very um, complicated, and you don't want to be too complicated today, so I won't. But trust me when I say seed oils, every time you eat that cracker, that cookie, that sausage or whatever, that basically has seed oils in it, and you're going to turn off your GLP-1. But we want our GLP-1, right, Doc? Yes, we do. And since we want our GLP-1, let's quit turning it off. All right. How much fiber should we consume each day? I'm going to open the chat box. Some people may be putting the answers in already because I'm going to ask you to put the answers into the chat box. Okay. And then importantly, like I said, we've been talking about exercise. Is zone two walking every day enough exercise to do? I do my zone two walking. I have several patients. One person that's an employee of mine that does a zone two walking every day. And she basically got started on the GLP-1 drugs. She's off of it now, but she's lost over 100 pounds. Cool, right? No, not so much. Because when we measured her muscle percentage, it was in the tank. All right, let's see. So everybody said, how many fiber we're supposed to take an idea every day? Somebody says, no idea. I'm gonna tell you, okay? So you have an idea. 25 grams for females, 40 for males. Yep. The actual recommended dose is 25 grams for females, 38 grams for males, but I just rounded it up to 40. Why not? I have my first 7 grams of my first cup of coffee. This is my second cup of coffee. So that's 14 grams of fiber I have in today that goes towards my 38 grams that I'm supposed to take in a day. So I have 24 more grams to take in. And it's not going to be difficult for me. It's not going to be difficult for you. So 30 grams for women. Okay, great. Is zone two walking every day enough exercise? Let me just see what y'all think about that. All right. Fiber tears my stomach up. GI put me on, gastroenterology put me on FODMAP. Okay. The thing about fiber is that it's a good thing, but when I tell people to start taking in 20 or 30 grams, you can't do that all of a sudden. You got to use a month worth of time to ramp up to it. And I didn't explain that before. So some people just went out and bought the fiber, bought the triple fiber and started taking it every day. And they stopped taking it primarily because it upset the stomach. It will. It's going to upset the stomach. You got to gradually work into it. So you got to, for a couple of 4 weeks, you just got to take 7 grams of the triple fiber, or you got to find some items like the structural fiber, the soluble fiber, or the insoluble fiber. I won't get into much what those are, but the most common fiber that we want are the soluble fibers. I'll explain a little bit what that means. Okay. Got to keep going though. How much muscle mass loss is too much? That's what we just were talking about. When I tell you that you've lost, and I'm going to show you some data from some well done trials, that when you come back into the office, we've now incorporated this thing called hand strength, hand grip. And you do this hand grip strength, and it shows you how much your function of your muscle mass has. So there's a lot of data out there that says, okay, fine, because there are certain people that come into my office like football players. that have a lot of muscle mass. They have a lot of fat. They have a lot of muscle mass. And they say, Doc, see, Doc, my muscle mass is good. But when I put the hand grips test to them, they fail it. So muscle mass is key, but but the more important thing is the function of that muscle mass. Once you get a lot of muscle mass and it's infiltrated with fat, its function decreases. So there's certain numbers that are associated with hand grip strength, which dictates how much strength your rest of your muscles of your body have. So the hand grip strength, if you've lost um, muscle strength in the order of around about 20 pounds, okay, 10 kilograms, then you've basically done a lot of things. You've taken 10 years off your life. Oh, when you come to the office, when we put you on that fancy scale back in the back that it shows your muscle mass, and then we do the hand grip strength, that's the ideal thing. So make sure you ask for, hey, listen, I want my hand grip strength tested, and I want my muscle mass tested. Because if your muscle mass is good and your hand grip strength is good, then you're good. However, a large percentage of patients, and we're doing the studies now, a large percentage of patients, over 70% of people come in, lost the weight. The muscle mass may or may not be there, but the hand grip strength is diminished. When you've lost 20 pounds, you just aged yourself by 10 years. So those young ladies, so at the bottom of that scale, we're able to calculate that, put the hand grip strength in, and to tell you how much you are, what your age is physiologically. So some people will come in at 35 years of age, and unfortunately, that scale will say, well, you're 60 years of age. I just had that last week. I was unfortunate, but that's reversible. So you don't want to be older. You want to be younger. Let's turn the hands back. So how much muscle mass is too much? How much muscle mass loss is too much? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So the answers to today's question, what is GLP-1 glucagon-like polypeptide? One, Wegovy, semaglutide. Those are the commercial brands that they got from you. What are the three main functions of GLP-1? This is the key. Why am I talking GLP-1? Why do we want to elevate it? Because GLP-1 does three things. It increases your satiety. It makes you feel full on smaller amounts of food. Okay? I'm going to tell you the three things first. Then it blunts the brain's reward system. You know how you get a reward from eating that pasta, that cookie, that mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, that rice. You get that, that was good. What was in that? That was really, really good. You put a little gravy on that. That's even better. That's the reward system telling you something. That was good. I want another bite. And they have chemical engineers and food engineers that actually know how to put certain ingredients that make your that food stimulate your reward system. It's called your mesolimbic system, or your brain, your hypothalamus. But they know how to do it. And the whole goal is to make you eat more so they can sell more. All right. That's not our goal, though, right? And number three, the GLP-1 blunts the ghrelin hormone. The ghrelin hormone is that I feel full. Okay. And I'm sorry. The ghrelin hormone is not I feel full. The ghrelin hormone is I'm hungry. Okay. You guys catch that? Let me see if y'all caught that. Nobody caught it. So I am hungry. All right. So you don't want that ghrelin hormone on all the time. You want to blunt it, and that's what GLP-1 does. Blunting it means that you're going to decrease its level of occurrence. And so basically, you're not going to feel hungry. It's the opposite. All right. So the ghrelin hormone, if it's stimulated, you're saying, I'm hungry. So when we wake up in the morning, we hadn't eaten anything since yesterday evening, our ghrelin is up. And when we get up in the morning, we say, I'm hungry. Now, I'm not hungry this morning. And if you guys have followed our rules from last week and you're not hungry this morning, why? I'm going to show you why. But if indeed I didn't follow the rules that I told you about last week, I would be hungry this morning. I'd want breakfast. Instead, I'm ready to wait until around about 11 or 12 o'clock, and I'm going to call it brunch because I'm going to have me some eggs. All right, along with some salmon, along with some avocado. All right. So the I'm hungry hormone, GLP-1 blunts it. Why do we want those three things to occur? Because we're trying to tap into a storage of fat. So our body is not hungry, so we're not taking in calories. It goes back to the calories in versus calories out. So our body's not taking in enough calories to support our livelihood, our actions and our functions of our body every day. Say, for instance, if you need 3,000 calories, if you're going to exercise and you're going to eat and your brain is going to function and your lungs are going to function, your kidneys going to function, your liver is going to function, you need energy. That energy is called calories. Those calories have to come from somewhere. They don't come out of the air. So you have to eat a certain number of calories in order to survive. The ones where your brain functions, your lungs function, your kidneys function, your liver functions, those are called your basal metabolic rate. Those are the calories that you need in order for your body just to survive. Then if you get up out of the bed and start doing some things with your body, like working, like walking, like exercise, then you add that level of activity to your basal metabolic rate, and it becomes your total daily energy expenditure, TDEE. Okay. So if your basal metabolic rate is 2,200 calories, and then you do a certain amount of activity, your total day, you may add another 800 calories. That gives you 3,000 calories as your total daily energy expenditure. What's the point? The point is that if you get up and say, listen, I want to lose some weight, I want to lose some fat, and you burn and you basically say, I need 3,000 calories, but I don't want to take in 3,000 calories. I want to lose some of this fat. You're basically saying, okay, I'm going to take in 1,000, maybe 2,000 calories a day, and I'm going to have a deficit of 1,000 calories. And so the body says, no, you can't have a deficit. I need 3,000 calories today based upon the function of your brain, your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, and based upon the amount of activity. I need 3,000 calories. So that with that need of 3,000 calories, your body says, I'm going to take it out of your fat stores. Voila. That's why we're here. We want the body to take it out of the fat stores. Now, if you're here and you have a body fat percentage of 10%, hang up because I'm not talking to you. Because if you're not taking in enough calories to tap into your fat stores, you're not supposed to be here. Wait, I take that back. I'm going to teach even you how to eat healthy. But the goal of the majority of people here today is because we have a certain amount of fat in our body that's making us sick. We want to get rid of that fat. And GLP-1's function is the way to get rid of that fat. Because GLP-1 goes back to the same principle, calories in, calories out. It's decreasing the amount of calories we take in. So our body has to go to the fat bank, our fat bank around our belly, our fat bank inside our abdominal cavity, our fat bank in our butt, hips and thighs, our fat bank in our liver. We want to get that fat because that fat is in the wrong place and it's causing inflammation in our body. It's causing the diabetes. It's causing the high blood pressure. It's causing all the things because that fat is biologically active. It's just not a cosmetic thing. It is sitting there and it's releasing C-reactive protein. It's releasing a bunch of chemicals that are causing inflammation. And the number one cause of disease today is basically that chronic inflammation in our body. So having that fat sit there for our lives, you get chronic inflammation all your life. So you're going to get atrial fibrillation like I did. You're going to get heart failure. You're going to get brain fog, diabetes, hypertension, all the things, all the chronic diseases that you can think of, the underlying mechanism most commonly, 86 to 90% of the time, is inflammation in your body. Okay. So the three food nutrients, so we want that GLP-1. We want the body to go after those fat stores. We want to get that fat off. And so we want that GLP-1 activated because of the three things that it did. So how can we activate it? Three food groups, right? Protein. Protein is the first thing you're going to take in. I'm going to show you the foods that you're going to take in. I'm going to hand it to you. Protein activates GLP-1 in the small bowel directly. So when you eat protein, you get an immediate bump of GLP-1, but it comes down a couple hours later. So you need protein because in the small intestine, when you get protein, the amino acids hitting those GLP-1 cells in the bowel, you get a release of GLP-1. It doesn't last long though. Okay, so therefore you have to have something else that stimulates it. And fiber and fat are the two things that we want to have stimulated. And I'm going to show you a graph as to the timing of the foods and how they stimulate the GLP-1 and how I get my GLP-1 and how you're going to get your GLP-1 level throughout the day. And mine is level throughout the day, and it's going to be level, and it's going to start going down around about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And so that's when my hunger is going to come in. That's when my blunting of my ghrelin hormone is going to come in around about 10 o'clock because I've eaten certain things in a sequence that are keeping my GLP-1 elevated throughout the night. I'm going to show you what to do with that. Okay. So protein, fiber, all right. So where does fiber? Fiber is that golden thing, and that's the one thing that we're not taking enough of that we just got to. So the two things that we got to talk about today is how to avoid losing muscle mass and how to get more fiber. Fiber is that magical ingredient. It's not so magical. I'm again, I assume that people understand when I talk about fiber, but they don't. People say, okay, fine. Yeah, my bowel movements are okay. Yeah, it's okay for your bowel movements, but that's not its structural goal. Its structural goal is to do something way more than bowel movements. That fiber is keeping us elevated. Plus the fiber, and that's the other thing that I'm going to address. One other thing. I want to address one other thing that people ask me to talk about. They told me to talk about cholesterol. Some people are, if you have cholesterol problems, put it in the chat box that you have cholesterol problems. Because the one thing that people don't know that they can kind of wean off their medicines, not without your doctor's advice, but the more fiber you take in, I'm going to show you studies. The more soluble fiber you take in, the better your cholesterol will be. And I'm going to show you how that works. The more fiber. So if you got high cholesterol problems, LDL elevated, you start taking in fiber because that is your key. That is the golden thing that you do. If you're still taking in refined carbohydrates and you're neglecting your fiber, your cholesterol will never come down unless you take a statin or what's the other drug called? A metamide, whatever it's called. I can't block another name of it now. But you have to take a drug. But why take a drug when you can do it on your own? Okay. So people telling that their LDL is high, have cholesterol problems. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. How much fiber should we consume to correct that problem? Fiber takes care of two problems. It elevates your GLP-1 and it gets your cholesterol down. What a hallelujah situation. Okay. So if you're taking it in that 25 to 38 grams of fiber every day, and we're not, on average, Americans take in around about 12 to 15 grams, if that. And then, so you're missing the opportunity because the more fiber you take in, is 38 grams for me enough yeah, it's enough. But that's my baseline. If I had high cholesterol, I'd take it up to 50 grams, 60 grams. The more fiber you take in, this has a linear relationship with lowering your cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol, the one we're worried about. Okay. So if I take in 60 grams of fiber, and so again, let me go back to the point because people say, oh, I take that stuff and I get bloated. Don't try to take 60 grams in today or over a week. Take in 5 grams today. Take in and gradually build your body up to it because you will get the bloating. You will get the gas. You will, because your body has to get used to that level of fiber. Why? Because we just hadn't had it in our diet enough. It's unusual to our body. And how much muscle mass loss is too much. Okay. Those are the things we're going to address today. All right. So this is I talk about that grip strength. These are the studies that came out of several articles. This was one out of the Lancet came out in 2015. Each 10-pound drop in grip strength. So you come in and we initially get your grip strength, and it's like, oh, 60, 70, 80. Mine is up there. So I'm doing okay for an old man. And then you come back in after taking the GLP-1 drugs or losing the weight with surgery. And basically, each 10-pound drop in grip strength equals 16% higher all-cause mortality. And these are observational studies, but these are over hundreds of thousands of people. 10-pound drop. In other words, you come back in and almost everybody who comes back in, they've been on certain things. will have a 10-pound drop in their weight loss if they've been on for a longer period of time, 6 months to a year. They get a 10-pound drop in their grip strength. They just increased their mortality rate by 16%. Really? And what do they usually? Stroke, heart attack, diabetes, cancer. Those things are all cause mortality, and that's what a 10-pound drop in weight loss. So you do not want to lose muscle. Another study of 140,000 adults across 17 countries. The grip strength outperformed blood pressure as a predictor of heart attack, stroke, and death. So we're now taking our grip strength as a routine part of your vital signs. It it outperforms blood pressure as a predictor. So if you come in and you got a high blood pressure and all that, we then will say, okay, fine. Yeah, your blood pressure is one number. What is your hand grip strength? It will tell us that, yeah, you're either really, really seriously going to have problems or not so much. The takeaway, strength is one of the strongest biomarkers of longevity. The stronger the grip, the longer the life. That's what this particular study, the pure study. Okay. Another study. Garcia and Hermosa BMI in 2018, a meta-analysis of 1.9 million. A meta-analysis, the larger the observational study, the better. Okay. High muscle strength equals 31% lower risk of all-cause mortality. So one study showed that you have an increased risk of all-cause mortality if your strength is less. This one shows the corollary of that is that you have a high muscle strength. If you come in and you basically do that hand grip thing, and it's not just one of the persons asked me the question, I want to get this straight because they said, well, do I need to go do some exercises with some weights and increase my wrist strength? No, no, no. That's not what the hand grip strength is measuring. It's measuring all your muscle mass and function. The hand grip strength is one of the things that they use as a proxy to see what the rest of your muscles are like. So, and it's spot on. So a high muscle strength equals a 31% lower risk of all causes. You just increase your lifespan by 31%. How's that for why we should incorporate muscle building exercises in our regimen? Walking along, then there's one state, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get to it. Walking along like some people are doing, just doing the 30-minute zone two exercise, which I pushed. Uh, but I didn't mean to push it that hard that was all you did. But walking along without resistance training exercise actually increases that number even more to 37%. I think I have the study. But just doing aerobic exercise while you're losing fat and you're losing aerobic exercise without paying attention to muscle mass is that critical. Okay. So across nearly 2 million adults, stronger individuals lived significantly longer and had lower rates of cardiovascular disease and health and cancer deaths. Take away building and maintaining strength as years to your life expectancy, along again with health span, quality of life, not just because again, once you have a broken hip, you all know the numbers for that, and maybe you don't. And I keep thinking that you do, but that's a mistake. My bad. But if you're 67 years old and you break your hip, you decrease your lifespan significantly. It's almost up to 50%. Somebody who's in their 70s and 80s who breaks their hip, their mortality rate skyrockets. So we don't want to break our hip. We don't want to break anything when we get in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. We just don't. Okay. So muscle mass is the key. Cardio alone, this is the slide, won't save your muscle. Okay. This is out of New England Journal of Medicine in 2017. Weight loss plus aerobic equals muscle loss. Weight loss, if you're losing weight and you're doing uh, the thing that I told you to do, walking every day, you're doing aerobic exercise, or you're running, or you're doing cycling, and you're losing weight because you've had the surgery, or you're on the GLP-1 drugs, or however your method is, you will lose muscle. Weight loss plus resistance training, you at least preserve the muscle. This is in the study. Only the combination of aerobic and resistance training preserves strength, balance, and walking speed. Only the combination. So we have to stop just doing the walking every day. Some point in time this afternoon, you got to get the resistance bands, do the push-ups, and do the air squats. Okay. The takeaway: walking ups your heart. Stay young. Lifting keeps your body from aging. Okay. All right. So This is I think my last study. Barackos and metabolism in 2024, losing 20 to 25% of fat-free mass. What drug does that? You remember? 20 to 25% of fat-free mass impairs metabolism and insulin sensitivity. Fat-free mass is the body's metabolic engine. Your muscle is your metabolic engine. Your muscle, your bone, your organs. Losing it reduces resting metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate goes down. When your basal metabolic rate goes down, that means you're not burning fat. Okay. And then when you lose that muscle mass, then glucose has nowhere to go. So it stays in the bloodstream. When it stays in the bloodstream, the body says, I can't keep you in the bloodstream. You're too damaging to the vessels in the bloodstream. You'll damage your kidneys, you'll damage your eyes, you'll damage your nerves. The body says, I can't keep you in the bloodstream. I'm sorry. I know we don't have as much muscle to store you, but I can't keep you in the bloodstream. So insulin says, okay, I got to put you somewhere. I'm sorry, the muscle is not here. I got to put you somewhere. Where's he going to put it? Puts it into the fat stores. It gets it out of the blood. Is the insulin's job is this, I got to get you out of the blood because the blood, you're going to really damage your kidneys and you're going to damage your brain because high levels of glucose inside your blood vessels go to your brain, go to your kidneys, go to your heart. And those things the glucose causes inflammation when it's elevated in your blood system. Insulin knows better to keep that glucose in the blood system, so it pushes it. All right. So the takeaway, if you lose muscle while dieting, your metabolism breaks before your willpower does. All right. No, this is another step. Sorry about all the studies. But anyway, that was it. I wonder if this thing works. Remember I tried to show this last week? The 30-year-old female who, okay. When you know it now, it works. All right. So last week it didn't work. I don't know what it was. But anyway, I'll explain that next time. I don't have time to explain it today. But I was talking about calories in versus calories out. And I was showing people how many calories we have in our body. All right. So we're supposed to have, our body fat percentage is supposed to be around about 20, 25%. Okay. But when people come to the office, they have a 50%, a 60% body fat percentage. All right. So how many calories is that equal to? Where every pound of fat is 3,500 calories. All right. So if you weigh, let me just give you this summary. If you weigh 300 pounds, 300 pounds of your weight is your total weight. But if you have 50% body fat percentage, that means that 50% of 300 is 150 pounds. 150 pounds of fat is on your body. So the goal is basically, I don't want to get rid of 100% of the fat when I lose fat. I want to get down to having 20%. So I need a protective buffer. So when I say I want to keep you at 20 to 25%, now obviously bodybuilders are at 5%, 10%. They're very, very lean. They have no body fat, right? But for our intents purposes, we want to keep 20, 25%. We want to keep our butt, right, women? We want some men too. I want to keep my butt. But we want to keep 20%. So that means I want to lose 80% of that 150 pounds. All right. So 80% of 150 is 120 pounds. That's what I want to lose. So I'm weighing 300 pounds. We figured it out. I need to lose 120 pounds of fat. Okay. Well, how many calories are in my body? So I have 125 pounds of fat that I want to lose. So multiply 120 times 3,500 calories per pound. That's a well-known figure. It's out there. Go Google it. How many calories are in each pound? Well, I got 120 pounds that I need to get off. 120 times that 3,500 calories per pound equals what? 420,000 calories? 420,000 calories. Just to kind of give you an idea as to how you're not going to lose that with exercise every day. When I walked yesterday, I did my 30-minute zone 2 walk. I burned 240 calories. Now, if I had 400, 500 calories, 500,000 calories to lose. That's going to be like pissing in the ocean to lose 200 calories, right? So that's why I may have told you before that you cannot lose weight by exercise alone. People have been trying it forever. But when your personal trainers tell you you need to exercise more, you need to do more, you need to do more resistance, you need to do more. It's impossible. It's impossible. Don't try it. All right. Anyway, that was that. All right. I don't know what this slide represents, but anyway, this is where the road meets the road. I'm going to touch some bases on this, and I'm going to touch bases on the cholesterol. All right. So when we're gonna, this is your stomach, and this is your small bowel. These yellow dots indicate where your GLP-1 cells are. Now you all got it in your heads, right? As to what GLP-1 is supposed to do, right? Okay. GLP-1 does the three things, right? Makes you feel full, okay? Basically decreases your cravings and it blunts your hunger, your ghrelin hormone. All those three things are only for one purpose. And so you don't eat as much. And then that leads to you not taking in the amount of energy that your body needs in order to survive. Therefore, the body's survival mechanism kicks in and it steals calories from your fat stores, from that 420,000 calories we got sitting there in our fat. The body takes 1,000 of that a day, 2,000, depending upon what your level of restriction is. So that's what we want. So we do want to activate these GLP-1 cells. What activates it in the small bowel? Okay, I'm talking too much. What's the product? What's the food group that activates in the small bowel? Put it in the chat box. Put it in the chat box. Somebody says they got rid of their personal trainer. Now, I don't mean to do that now. I need somebody to still encourage you. But if they're telling you to exercise more to lose weight, you're right. You need to tell them to come to this webinar. All right. So everybody's putting in great. Thank you. The first thing you're going to do is take in your protein. Mine is going to be some eggs, some salmon. That's my protein. That protein is going to activate the GLP-1 levels here. This is Chat GPT. I asked it to draw me a thing with L cells in it. It put it in the stomach. You don't have any L cells in your stomach. So that's why I circled that. I wanted to get rid of it. I didn't have time to tell it to get rid of it today. But your first thing you want to activate it is your GLP-1 in your small bowel. Then the second place you want to activate is your GLP-1 in your lower part of small bowel. ChatGPT didn't do me a good job here. I wanted to have more concentration of L cells down the small bowel because they are here in a linear fashion, but they're here all bunched up in the lower part of the small bowel. This part of the small bowel is called the ileum, and that lower part of the small bowel has 3 times as many L cells as up in here in the jejunum and the duodenal area. Okay. All right. So I have more concentration of L cells here and even more in the colon. And there's a linear correlation with the number of L cells and the amount of GLP-1 you produce. Our goal is to produce more GLP-1. That's what the drug companies are doing. They're giving you that shot and they're giving you 1,000 times what you're making here, but they're giving you that shot once a week because who wants to take a shot every single day? They need to lower the dose, but in order to lower the dose, they have to give it to you every day. Nobody's going to take a shot every day. That's why they're working on making a pill. And then obviously the pill will have its side effects. But anyway, our goal is to activate where most of the GLP-1 cells live. So protein, we're going to activate a few of them. That's going to stay up and come down in a couple of hours. Then we want something to activate it down here in the small bowel. What activates it down in the small bowel? All right. The chat box again, go ahead and quickly put it in. Okay, somebody, we almost got it. So this is what I want to explain. This is basically activated directly, and it has a bunch of biochemical terms to it, but it's directly activated by fat. So after the food gets down to here, and it takes a couple of hours to get down here. All right, so it gets down here pretty quickly, but it didn't digest and digest, and it gets down there. So the second stimulant wave is going to come from fat, healthy fats, not the dirty saturated fats, not the fried chicken, not the steak all the time, not even the butter all the time. You know, I do let some people eat butter, but yeah. So eating fat next, which is that avocado, which is that olive oil, which is basically the things that we're going to eat. And a lot of things contain fat and as well as fiber. And we'll get into that. All right. So the fat, so a lot of people put fiber. Now, fiber, as I'm going to tell you the answer, is going to activate mostly here. And fiber is that one that keeps the GLP-1 levels stable longest because this requires fermentation. You have bacteria in your colon, the fiber comes in here and it goes through a process, a manufacturing process. That process means that the fiber's got to supply the microbiome, the bacteria. The bacteria say, "Oh, I got some fiber. That's my food." The fiber eats the food. The fiber eats the food. The bacteria eats the food. And then the bacteria, as a result of eating that food, eating that fiber, it produces a product. That product that produces are called short chain fatty acids. Now, I'm sorry, but I promised myself I wouldn't do this, but I got to do a little bit. But the short chain fatty acids, the three are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. When it poo-poos out butyrate, because when the bacteria eats the fiber, it's sort of like it's going to poo-poo. That's the byproduct to get that. And the microbacteria's poo-poo is butyrate, propionate, and acetate. Trying to figure out how to simplify it. So it's going to poo-poo, but that butyrate that it poo-poos is gold for these L cells in the colon because that butyrate stimulates these L cells, and you put a tremendous amount of GLP-1. So listen to what I just said. Fiber is what we want, but fiber it's got to take all this time to get down here, and it's going to get down here. So it's going to take a little while. So it's going to take 6, 8, 10 hours to get here. Then it's going to take another several hours for the bacteria to eat it and poo-poo it out, and then poo-poos out butyrate. And so the fiber is going to be lasting a longer period of time. So I'm going to show you how that works out. How do we do with the surgery? Well, the surgery is that we take these cells, and this is in the lower part of the small bowel. So if I go here and all these cells, remember I told you these L cells, this is the jejunum, the upper part of the small bowel, and then further down is the ileum, where the concentration of these L cells are higher. And remember, the greater the concentration, the more GLP-1 we produce. The more GLP-1 we produce, then we don't feel hungry, we don't feel cravings, and basically we get full on just eating a small amount of food. The goal being that ain't enough calories, and so our body says, I got to go get some fat out of the fat bank. That's the goal, okay? So what we do is we go down to that lower part of the small bowel and we cut that with a bypass. This is the bypass. We cut that and we bring that high concentration of L cells directly up to the stomach area. This is what this is. So this is that lower part of the small bowel with a tremendous concentration of L cells. We cut that from down below and we bring it up to here. So when protein, fiber, and fat hits this, all right, when the fat hits this area right here, you get a tremendous amount of GLP-1 without waiting the 16 hours, the 10, 12, 16 hours to do it. Okay? That's how the surgery works. And then you have a small pouch, and it also enforces the decreased amount of food you can take in. And the sleeve works the same way too. But basically, the sleeve just cuts out the reservoir, and you get the protein, the fiber, and healthy fat down into the small bowel and distally further down a lot faster. So these are the three things the GLP-1 does. Increases our satiety. It makes us feel full in smaller amounts. And I'm saying the same thing over and over again, so I know you know that. Blunts the ghrelin and decreases craving. So we take in less calories. We take in 1,000 less calories than our body needs. Our body has to go to the fat store. All right. So this is cool. Let me put my glasses so see it. All right. So this is when you eat protein first. All right. So it goes up into this area here. And so you at 10 a.m. when I'm going to start eating, I'm going to eat protein first, my eggs and my salmon. It's going to spike up. My levels of GLP-1 are going to spike up. Then they're going to come down after a couple of hours. All right. So we don't want to ever get it down to zero, but it's going to start coming down. So protein does this job early on, but it lasts only a few hours. Then I'm going to basically go ahead and take in the fat. Next upon I'm taking it, the avocado or whatever. So the salmon has fat in it. The avocado has fat in it. Okay. Some people like to have beef bacon that has fat in it. It comes from a cow, though, not from pork. But then that fat is gonna stimulate that the fat is gonna stimulate down in the terminal ileum, that last part of the small bowel. Get it? Protein is going to stimulate in the first part of the small bowel. Then the last part is going to take a little bit longer to get down there. So it's not going to peak until around about 1 o'clock or something like that. Then it's going to start to come down. Then on that same meal, we're going to take in the fiber. Well, the fiber is going to be the one that doesn't kick in at 10 a.m. It kicks in only at 2 p.m. because it takes time to get down the small bowel. So as it gets down the small bowel and as it gets to the colon, and then it gets to the colon, then it starts to ferment. It starts to poo-poo and produce butyrate, and butyrate stimulates the cells in the colon to produce GLP-1. All right. So the fiber is basically the last thing. So you're going to have this process keeping your GLP-1 till 10 o'clock tonight. Okay. But that means that at 10 o'clock tonight, when basically that GLP-1 goes down, we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to be hungry, right? So how do we take care of that? Well, we eat twice a day. So this is the breakfast curve. So protein goes up, GLP-1 goes up, then the fat comes in, and it's the second wave. And the third wave is the fiber. And then so we're peaking at our GLP-1 about 6 p.m. Then guess what we're going to do? We're going to eat again. So we're going to have a second wave. That second wave of this carries it to the 10 p.m. to midnight, and then we're going to get the fiber again, taking us to 10 o'clock the next day. How about that? How about that? So 2 meals a day with the right components keeps us full for 24 hours. You do that cycle every single day, your GLP-1 stays low. You won't get hungry. And but this curve here is probably the most important for several reasons. One, it's the curve of the fiber. So when we take in, I think this slide here addresses the obesity, the cholesterol problem. When we take in fats, I mean the liver makes the fats. And I'm pausing here because I don't know how simple I can make this, but let me see if I have the video to explain it better. But the liver makes the fats, the triglyceride, but that fat has to be broken down. LPL cells for lipoprotein lipase. And it breaks it down to glycerol and fatty acids because triglyceride can't get into, this is the fat cell. Triglyceride can't get into the fat cell. We need triglyceride, cholesterol into the fat cell because it's got to distribute fat and cholesterol throughout the body to make our hormones, our testosterone, our estrogen, progesterone, to make our other hormones like cortisol, to make our the lining of all our cells is made of cholesterol. The myelin sheets of our nervous system is made of cholesterol. Our brain is covered with cholesterol. Okay. We've got to get cholesterol throughout the body. How does the body do that? Well, the liver makes the cholesterol and then it transports it via this transportation cell. But it has to break it down first in order to get it into the cell. Now, I know I didn't make that clear at all. Let me just kind of bottom line is that LPL, lipoprotein lipase, breaks down the triglycerides. So, because this triglyceride molecule can't get into the cell, it's too big. But when you break it down to glycerol and fatty acids, then fatty acids are small enough that it can permeate through the membrane and get into the cell. But glycerol is still too big. So how does glycerol get in there to make triglyceride? Well, the glucose in the bloodstream Basically, when you eat a meal and glucose in the bloodstream goes up, then the glucose opens up the door and glucose gets into the cell. Glucose is then converted to glycerol, and glycerol is combined with fatty acids. You make triglyceride. Let me tell you the bottom line of the story. Let me just go ahead and see if I got that. Yeah, I got the video. I hope you can hear this.
In its complete form, it's unable to enter the fat cell.
So this is triglyceride. It says in its complete form, it's unable to enter the fat cell. We've got to take that fat everywhere.
Like this enzyme here, lipoprotein lipase, which then cleaves the larger molecule and allows, look at triglycerides first. In its complete form, it's unable to enter the fat cell. And this is where insulin comes in.
Oops. So it's saying that insulin comes in and basically cleaves this into those two molecules that we talked about. Insulin comes in and activates LPL, lipoprotein lipase, and it causes a breakdown to fatty acids. I'm not going to go through this, guys. I know this is getting too complicated. Let me just get to the bottom line. So this basically shows you that the liver makes cholesterol, and it's called when it takes in all the triglyceride, it's called VLDL. Now it's got to deliver that to the ovaries and to the testicles and to the brain, and it's got to deliver that cholesterol because our body needs cholesterol. So it basically the liver makes it the cholesterol and then gets into the bloodstream. That's where the problem lies with all you folks with cholesterol problems. All right, because it's getting in there, it's doing its job. It's supposed to be in the bloodstream, but this is what happens. So it takes it takes the cholesterol and it delivers it to the fat cells, to the myelin, to the testosterone levels, to the adrenal glands, and it shrinks. So as the VLDL, which is the large particle, then becomes LDL, because as it delivers its components, its triglyceride to its target areas, it offloads. All VLDL from the liver is just a truck of, I got to take this cholesterol, I got to deliver this package to the testosterone, to the cortisol, to the brain, because that it needs, to the vitamin D things, because it needs that in the body. But then when it gets down to this point here, where it becomes LDL particle, and it's down here. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah. All right. So then what happens when you have the LDL in the let me go back one more. Sorry. LDL basically builds up the plaque. So we want to figure out a way to get our LDL down if you have LDL problems, right? So one of the ways to get LDL down is to eat fiber. So this slide says, if I can get the other things out of my way, you can see it, but I can't. What happens to cholesterol when you don't eat fiber? All right, let's do that one. So basically, when this is cholesterol. This is cholesterol, and I'm sorry, I'm pausing because and bile acids. Okay, bile acids are made out of cholesterol. When it goes in here and it goes down into the intestinal tract, our bile acids helps us digest fat. So when we eat a fatty meal, we need bile acids in order to digest it. So it goes on down into the intestinal tract, and watch what happens when it gets down to the lower part of the intestinal tract. When it gets down to the lower part, it comes out of the bile. It goes into what this is the vein, the portal vein goes back up to the liver. So all the cholesterol and bile acids we use them over and over and over again. Okay. So the more fat and the more, just the bottom line is that the more carbohydrates we eat, the more fat we make, and it just recirculates. It recirculates over and over and over again. All right. So it goes back into our body, and our cholesterol goes back to our liver. We eat some more, we basically eat some more carbohydrates, we make more cholesterol. All right. And so that cholesterol, again, gets transported to the vessels, and we wind up with more LDL. All right. Let's go to the next slide. All right. What happens to the cholesterol when you do eat fiber? Okay, let's see what happens to that now. So you're going to have some fiber coming in here. Here's the fiber coming in. And then the fat and the cholesterol, then the fiber then hooks on to the bile acids and the cholesterol. All right. So it basically again goes and does its job. The bile acids help you digest the fat. But then as it goes down into the small bowel, with the fiber cannot get absorbed. Look, watch where it goes. It stays in the bowel, and then boom, it comes out through the poo-poo. Okay. So we wanted the fiber, we want the bile acids and the cholesterol to do its job, deliver to the places it needs to be delivered. But we don't want it to keep circulating around, going back to the liver, making more. So basically, and the people who have elevated LDL primarily are doing that and they're overdoing it because they're eating more sugar and it's making more cholesterol. And so basically what we wanted to do is to follow this mechanism. We don't want it to go back up to the liver. We want it to now go out through the poo-poo. I like that word. So the more fiber you eat, the more it does that. Okay. All right. So this is a study out of Advances in Nutrition 2023, impact of soluble fiber on LDL cholesterol by dose. Each 5 grams of soluble. Now, the women are supposed to take in 25 grams, men 38 grams, 40 grams. Each 5 grams of soluble fiber result in a 6 milligram decreased LDL cholesterol. So if you 5 milligrams, you add it to 10 milligrams, you decrease by 6 milligrams. This is a study of 14,500 adults. Health participants, they had elevated cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, or obesity, which describes a lot of us. But if I'm telling you, if we're taking on average 10 to 15 grams of fiber every day, we're not cutting it. We've got to take in more. Okay. So basically, you take your 15 grams, you increase it to 20 grams, you decrease your cholesterol by your LDL cholesterol. You decrease your LDL cholesterol by 6 milligrams. Okay. If you take that up to 20, you decrease it by 12 milligrams. You take that up to 25, you decrease it by 18 milligrams. Get it? So if you see what your LDL cholesterol is, and the higher it is, the more fiber you take in. Again, gradually build up to it so you don't get the bloating. But the studies show this definitively. And what happens? The secondary thing, a relative risk of fiber, is basically 31% decrease in coronary heart disease, a 24% decrease in risk of heart attack, a 22% risk of stroke, a 15% risk of all-cause mortality, and a 16% decreased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. All right, let me see if I get it. Okay. So recommendations, adult male 28, 38, adult female 25 grams per day. Make half of that. To me, I make most of it soluble fiber. Why soluble fiber? Soluble fiber is this stuff here. This is the inulin, the triple fiber, okay? It has inulin, acacia, and psyllium husk. What do I mean by soluble? You put it in a glass and you put a little bit of water and it makes a kind of a gel. So what happens in your stomach is that you put it in, you take it in and you want it to make a gel. So you take plenty of water along with it and it makes it into a gel. That gel then as is the fiber that you saw coming down the stomach. That gel sucks that cholesterol and triglyceride to it, and it takes it out into the stool. Okay, which is what we want. We want to decrease our LDL cholesterol, and this is how to do it. It's not rocket science. So we can take in both the soluble fiber, which is the most effective at lowering cholesterol, the insoluble fiber, like the cauliflower, like the broccoli, like the things that have structured twigs on them or whatever you call them. But those are good as well. They do some of the things with type 2 diabetes and your bowels, insoluble fiber. But the things you want are the soluble fiber. And the reason I concentrate on soluble fiber, because if you're one of my patients, or if you're here and basically you had the surgery, you can't take in enough whole food in the form of fiber because you got a small pouch. You can take in 35 grams, 30 grams a day of whole food. You got to supplement. So the reason because taking, I'll show you what this looks like in Whole Foods, okay? So that's why I talk about a fiber supplement right here. Because you can eat fruit, berries, legumes, and whole grains and nuts and seeds, but you're not going to be able to eat a whole lot of them. You're going to feel full. And so you're between a rock and a hard place. That fiber stimulates GLP-1 that makes you feel satiated and full. But I'm asking you to eat 30 grams of fiber. So I'm asking you to do two contradicting things. Because 30 grams of fiber in the form of whole food is a lot. It's a lot. And your GLP-1 is still activated from yesterday, and your GLP-1 increased because of the fiber, and so you're not hungry, but I'm asking you to eat more. Kind of a contradiction, right? So we've got to take all that into consideration. This is what I'm talking about. Breakfast, if you eat breakfast, I eat breakfast, but I call it brunch because I eat it at 11 or 12 o'clock. 250 grams of full fat Greek yogurt, 0 grams of fiber, but I add blueberries into it, which gives me 6 grams of total fiber and 1.4 grams of soluble fiber. Kind of a good combination, but 6.4 grams. And then I eat some pecan nuts on top of it. That gives me another 2.8 grams of total fiber. And then I add some psyllium husk in it. That's what this stuff is. Psyllium husk on there. And that gives me another 2.4 grams. That's 2 teaspoons of that. So basically, I'm eating with just this meal alone, I'm getting 11 grams of fiber. Now, women, you only need 25, right? Half of your fiber is right here in this thing here. But you may have to increase that psyllium husk 2 tablespoons or 3 tablespoons or so, because eating this whole bowl may not be things you can do. Okay. The mixed salad at lunchtime. Depends on when you eat lunch, or like I said, it's to me, I combine breakfast and lunch together. The romaine lettuce is 2 grams of fiber. Then green cabbage is 2 grams of fiber. Then you put some fennel in there, that's 7 grams of fiber. Then you put some celery in there, it's only 0.8 grams of fiber of parsley, but sunflower seeds you add in there, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, you add those in there, they kind of give you the same amount of fiber. Slice some pears up, put 5 grams of fiber, some goat cheese. That's mostly protein, and then must put the balsamic vinaigrette on top of that. That gives you 6 grams of soluble fiber, but 23 grams of total fiber, just this salad alone. Okay. Now, if you could eat all that, that would be great. But if you had a sleeve or a bypass, you're not going to be able to eat that whole salad. So you're not going to get that 23 grams. So you got to supplement. Okay. That's lunch. All right. This is dinner. This is from a friend of mine. I don't like processed sausages, so just ignore that. These potatoes, you obviously know that I don't do potatoes, but these are potatoes that have been that they have resistant starch in. In other words, they've been boiled, then they've been left in the refrigerator overnight, been cooled, and then they put it on the plate the next day in this form. And so they're resistant starch and they have fiber. So those boiled potatoes that are cooled and then eaten the next day have 3.75 grams of total fiber. So I don't want you to boil potatoes and eat them for 3 grams of fiber. But if you do it, and you're gonna do it, if you're gonna eat potatoes, you got to eat them the next day cold. That makes it a resistant starch. I don't have a lot of time to get into that. I got to get finished here. But anyway, this particular meal gives you total fiber of 11.7 grams. So you see that if you can eat everything that I put on here, you can get a lot of fiber in there easily. And what is fiber going to do? Repeat it over and over again. The fiber is going to basically take cholesterol down, take that LDL cholesterol down. This is the bottom line. And it's going to keep you feeling full, and you're basically on smaller amounts of food, and therefore you're going to need more calories to support your body, and you're not going to take in enough calories by mouth. So you got to go to the fat store. That's how we're losing the fat. And you remember the first part of the talk, we want to do the exercises, the resistance training exercises at least 2 times a week, preferably 3 times a week, in order to maintain that muscle mass. Total for the day, with snacks and dinner and lunch meal salad, we get a total for the day of 2,400 calories. Let's see. And so these are the things that I talk about. So brunch, here you got your fiber here, your fiber's in here, and your fat is in here. All right. Basically, this is brunch. So brunch will give you that first curve. So we're going to eat the protein, which is in the eggs. So then the eggs is going to last you 2 hours. So the amount of time that GLP-1 is going to be elevated with this brunch from the protein is just going to be 2 hours. And then you're going to eat the fat out of this thing, and it's going to basically start because it takes that fat a little bit longer time to get to that lower part of the bowel, right? So it's not going to start at the same time the protein. It's going to take to around about 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock before the fat gets down there. And the fat gets down to that lower part of the small bowel. It starts stimulating those GLP-1 cells, and it peaks around about 1 o'clock. All right. Then it starts to come down again. And then the fiber, especially from the day before, because you had to have fermentation processes going on, the fiber then kicks in about 2 o'clock. All right. 2 o'clock, and then it peaks about 6 p.m. And then it starts to go down. Okay. So that's just from that brunch. That's kind of cool. If you have protein, fat, and healthy fiber. All right. Then you're going to have dinner on day one. This was day one brunch. Then day one dinner is grilled salmon, some quinoa, drizzle in olive oil, and then I'm going to put some triple fiber because this right here, I'm not going to be able to eat all of that. If I had the sleeve or the bypass, I'm not going to be able to eat all of that. So I'm going to need to supplement. So I'm going to eat half of that salmon. I'm going to be able to eat this part and this part. I'm going to eat half of that quinoa. That's all I'm going to be able to eat. I'm not going to be able to eat this whole plate. That plate is too big for me. Okay. But what's going to happen is when I do that, again, I'm going to stimulate this. All right. So in the morning, we ate the brunch, right? And then as we ate the fiber, then we start coming down. But then what's happening at 6 p.m.? We just eat the dinner. We eat the dinner and we get that same cycle all over again. Like I mentioned before, it lasts us until 10 a.m. the next day. If you only get this one cycle here, or if you don't take in any fiber at all, you're going to be hungry the next morning. You're going to say, Doc, I can't do without breakfast. You can, but you got to have the fiber. The fiber, again, reiterated for two reasons. Okay. Number one, it controls your appetite, which is what we want to do because if we control our appetite and we have a less desire of eating junk food, then we're going to increase the amount of extraction of the fat from our fat stores. But number two, and importantly for everybody here, is that it controls your levels of cholesterol. You don't have to take statins. Some people do. Don't get me wrong. Some people have a level of cholesterol that they just can't get it down even with the fiber. But try the fiber first. And again, don't just go all in and taking all this 24 grams of fiber today. Build up to it because then you'll hate me for it and say, oh God, this doctor has told me to do all this stuff. Now I feel terrible. And you'll stop it. I don't want you to stop it. So I want you to take 5 grams of 5 grams a week at a time and then gradually build up to it over 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. All right. Day two brunch, and this is again the same kind of thing. We're going to have protein, fiber, and fat. Okay. Day two dinner, chicken and vegetables. Again, if you've had the surgery, it's going to have to take less than that, so you have to supplement. All right. Day three. So these are the things I'm going to give you the grocery list next and show you what you need. But we're constantly activating these curves. And if we only eat once a day and this goes down to 10 p.m. the next morning, we're going to be ravenous. So we want to keep something that keeps our levels up. So we want to basically make sure we eat twice a day. And the foods that we eat are important to stimulate those curves, those GLP-1 curves. Okay? Beef stir. I like that. This is a great, great brunch meal. All right. So this is whey protein. Put the protein in there, the kefir smoothie bowl, chia flax and blackberries. That is your fiber. Your blackberries and your blueberries have plenty of fiber. So you can start. One of the things that I love putting in my brunch meal is the blueberries because that gives you a significant amount of fiber. And then if I don't get enough, if I can't eat as many blueberries, I'll take in my triple fiber, inulin, acacia, and psyllium husk. All right. So it gives you that same curve. It'll show you that same curve over and over again. Healthy to fats. So what are the fats that I want you to take in that are healthy? Because I showed them to you, but now I want to kind of burn them into your brain. Extra virgin olive oil, go get some. Avocados and avocado oil, go get some. Macadamia nuts and oil, go get some. They're expensive. You don't have to get it, but walnuts and almonds do the same thing. Hazelnuts, almonds, and pecans. Macadamia nuts are expensive. Omega-3, these are all healthy fats that I want you to get. Omega-3, because the fats, remember, we're going to activate it in the lower part of the small bowel. And you're going to get that second wave of GLP-1, okay? And that's going to be the salmon, the sardines, the mackerel. I have all of those things in my house. Chia seeds, the flax seeds, and the hemp seeds, the walnuts, the algae oil, if you're just a plant-based person, okay? Now, the saturated fats, okay? Moderation. Once a week, maybe, grass-fed butter or ghee. Not bad, but it's moderation. Coconut oil, cacao oil, pasture-raised animal fats, like tallow. Okay, don't do a lot of that. Those are saturated fats. I want you to keep that down because, again, especially for people who have high cholesterol, cut out this part. Okay, all right. And this is told you, I love me some lamb chops, but you put it with the vegetables, perfect meal because it has protein and fat in it. Collard greens, I don't know if that's collard greens or not. Is that collard greens? Collard greens are great. So for all of you who love collard greens, I'm bowling this ball down your alley. All right, so kind of get my drift here. I got it. I'm going over time. What's the problem with this to re-engage you guys? What's the problem with this particular slide right here? Can you eat twice a day after gastric bypass? Yes, you can. These folks scream 5 meals a day. Don't do it. Do not eat 5 meals a day. That'll keep your insulin level up. Keep your insulin level up. You're going to be storing everything as fat. Do not listen. I hear those personal trainers talk about that all the time because they're talking about the energy of burning food, the thermogenic effect of food, TER, TEF, thermogenic effect of food. Don't buy into that because again, you're keeping your insulin levels up during that time. And when you're doing that, you're storing it as fat. So don't do that. Okay. Bread is the enemy. Juice. Yeah, that's right. So everything here is okay. The protein, the fat, but you throwing in some carbohydrates in there, some bad carbohydrates too. Bread is flour, processed. That jelly is processed. Orange juice is processed. Raises your insulin. Tells your body not to break down your fat. Our whole goal of GLP-1 is to tell our body to break down fat. But when you raise insulin, remember that slide I showed you that I didn't explain very well? That when you raise insulin, insulin stops LPL, lipoprotein lipase. Lipoprotein lipase. What is that? That's the enzyme that you got to have in order to break down your fat. So let me see if I can figure this out, how to put it. So if you're basically burning fat, you're breaking down fat to use it as the calories that your body needs. Okay? If you're taking in anything that raises up insulin, you're inhibiting that ability of the body to break down the fat. You're inhibiting lipoprotein lipase, which is the enzyme you need to break down the fat. Insulin directly inhibits lipoprotein lipase. So you eat some toast, you eat some orange, drink some orange juice, you're telling your body, okay, stop the breakdown process. So your GLP-1 and your toast that are going in two different directions. The GLP-1 says, I need to go to the fat store. But the toast it's raising the insulin and it's saying, nope, you're not going to get this, not going to get this fat today. You're conflicting your body. So we don't want to do that. Same thing here. What's the problem here? Yep, no fiber on the plate. What is it? Wheat bread? Yeah, even wheat bread for us guys. Now, for wheat bread for Michael Jordan, it's okay. He doesn't have the metabolic problems that we have. Okay. So when I'm talking to you guys, when your personal trainer says, what is that doctor talking about? Bread, wheat bread is fine. Brown rice is fine. Yeah, it is for the rest of the world, but you're here for a reason, right? Because you ain't like the rest of the world. So when I say these are the things I want you to hang away from, I'm basically talking to you because you're having the issues of metabolic disturbances. Insulin resistance is on its way. So in order to do that, yeah, I need you to cut out the wheat bread. I need you to cut out the brown rice. Yeah, I do. Okay. All right. the gravy, the cornbread, and the potatoes. Yep, you're right. All right. So, well, I only have a few minutes left. I got to give away this thing here. So these are the bad things. That slide showed you that basically turning on the GLP-1 in your L cells, those L cells can also be deactivated. They're in the intestinal tract. They love protein, fat, and healthy protein, healthy fat, and fiber. They love that. They see that and says, great, all kinds of great things occur. But then they see some other things come down the pipe. They see some bread coming down the pipe and say, oh, I'm confused. What do you want me to do? They see some sugary breakfast cereals. Oh, I'm confused. Okay. They see some pizza coming down, some crackers, some soda coming down, some instant oatmeal coming down, some white pasta coming down, spaghetti. It says, whoa, that has some soybean oil in it. That stops the process of fat burning. That turns off that GLP-1 cells. Okay. So those are the things we got to stay away from. I wish I had more time to explain to you, but I don't know. So let's see if I want to figure this thing out. Desserts and snacks, everything needs to contain some berries, some walnuts, because it has fiber in it. You take plenty of water. When you take an increased amount of fiber, remember the whole point of the fiber, the powder we're taking, all that is to make soluble fiber, which becomes a gel in the stomach. Well, in order to become a gel, you got to put some water in there, or else you won't like me again. All right, I'm about finished now. I'm going to give away this thing. I just wanted to see if there's any other slides I need to talk to you about. This talks about consistency. Don't have time to go. I'll go over that again next week. But go ahead and put it in the chat for me right now. Things you want me to talk about next week, and I will do it. But let me go ahead and let's see if I got anything else. Okay, this is just talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and end the slides, and we're about through. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad today. All right, so this is the scale I'm going to give away. Okay, so this is the scale I'm going to give away another one next week. All you have to do to register for the one for next week is to put your name in the chat box and say, hey, I'm interested in that scale. The reason I want you all to start looking at these scales is because I want you to concentrate on what we talked about today. When we get on our old routine bathroom scale, as we've done for 100 years, and it tells us we've lost weight, we get excited. But if we've lost 20%, as I showed you in the early part of this talk, we've lost 20% of our muscle mass, we're treading on dangerous waters. Trust me, okay? So I don't care if you didn't understand the science behind it or the studies that I showed. If I had to just kind of leave you with one thought, you don't want to lose 20% of your muscle mass, which a lot of things do. If you have the surgery and you lose 20% of muscle mass, then we got to sit and talk. So you got to weigh yourselves and you got to know how much muscle mass you're losing. With the surgery, you only lose around about 5%, maybe 7% of muscle mass. So, and what I misunderstood, people think I thought that people knew that, and I'm sorry that you didn't. But 5%, if you're losing muscle mass 5%, it's not that deleterious. Losing any muscle mass is deleterious, to be honest with you. Any muscle mass. But 5% the body can tolerate. But when it gets up to 15, 20, 25%, and in some cases with the drugs, 40%, you're in dangerous territory. Increasing the risk of heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, hypertension, cancer. You're increasing the risk of these things that we don't need to increase the risk of. So muscle mass is important. So when you get on your scale and you're losing weight, I want you to know what type of weight you're losing. That's why we're going to give away this scale today. And you come back next week, you put your name in the chat box again. I will make the drawing. Say you want this scale. Don't give away. I'm going to try to give one away every week because I want you to come back. Second thing I want you to do, and just to kind of feed my ego, is to tell me if you learned something new today. If you didn't learn anything new, because I'm talking about the same old thing, because my goal is to not to talk about the same thing. I want you to come back with a purpose. I don't want you to come back and say, oh, this is the routine. I've gone to that webinar. I've heard everything he has to say. And so I'm not going to learn anything new. So I'm not going to go to the webinar. I want you to invite your friends and family to come. I'm going to be giving away the scales even for that group as well. The people that invite more friends and family get to have a greater chance at winning the scale. But having people come and telling me that you learned something new. I talked about cholesterol today. I talked about muscle mass loss. I told you the numbers associated with the muscle mass loss. Tell me if you learned something new today. I talked about how fiber increases your GLP-1 and it lowers your cholesterol. A double whammy, a good double whammy. So to me, if I was to take this test and put it in the chat box, to me, I would put it in there. Man, I didn't know that fiber was that important. And I'm going to increase my fiber because it does two things. It squelches my hunger and it controls my cholesterol, two of the biggest problems that we have in this country. So fiber is that thing that I call a superfood, but we're not emphasizing it enough. I'm not emphasizing it. I'm sorry to keep you. All right. So everybody put your name in there. Tell me what you learned new today. If you did learn anything new, tell me honestly if this is the same old, because I can change it up and I will continue to change it up. All right. So the name, I need to know if these people are here because this is the person that won. The first person was a person by the name of Tina Bartholomew. Is Tina Bartholomew here? Just kind of get my pen. Okay, the Tina Bartholomew here. All right. Somebody says they lost 140 pounds. Thank you. You're welcome. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I learned about the hand grips for today. All right. I'm going to give Tina Bartholomew about 10 more seconds to say that she's here. She's because you got to be here in order to win the scale. So if you're here last week, these are the people who were here last week. And um, if you, just go ahead and tell me if you prefer me not to call your name out, I won't call your name out. But you got to be here. So I got to figure out who's all here. And I do have a list of people who are here. So the people I'm going to name three people that were here that I've pulled the names on. Rochelle Moses, and then yeah. Somebody says, call my name. Diana Jackson. All right. So Diana Jackson says she's here. Rochelle Moses says she's here. Okay. So those two basically, I'm going to give y'all both ones. Rochelle Moses and Diana Jackson. Okay. I'm going to give y'all both a scale. All right. Write that down. So, all right. So anyway, for next week, we're going to do the same thing. Put your name and say you want the scale. Because let me tell you guys, the key is I need you to monitor your muscle. I need you to monitor your muscle. Because the studies that I showed you, and I'll show them again next week as well, just to reiterate it, the studies are so impactful. And you guys need to know this because your doctor's not going to explain that to you. How many of you guys are going to your doctor and say, hey, what's your muscle mass loss? Or hey, you're losing weight. Great, great. What do you weigh today? Almost everybody, every time you go to the office, if anybody, they'll say, you're doing great if you lost weight. But it's so important that they follow that up with how much was that of muscle mass and how much was that of fat mass. If they don't follow it up, then they're not doing you any favors. We've got to get out of that habit of depending upon the scale. And that's why I'm giving away these scales. Because I want you to know that if you've lost 20% of muscle mass, let's stop. Let's talk. Because you're increasing your risk of stroke, heart attack, diabetes, hypertension. We're increasing our risk. And that ain't what this is all about. And the reason that I'm telling you all this is because I have anecdotal stories. Now, I've had people that have had the surgery, that have lost weight. They thought they were doing good. They stopped coming in. And then I get a message, that, yay, this is one of your persons that you did 10 years ago. They were 30 years old when you did them. They're 40 years old and they had a heart attack. I don't like to hear those stories. But then when I found out what it is, they've lost muscle mass I know that they've increased their risk. So I need you guys to come back here to learn this stuff. Okay? Maintain your muscle mass and increase your fiber intake. Okay? Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to stop the share of that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hope you all learned something. I'm going to look through the chat and basically put it in and make sure I got the two people that won. And what I'll do is that if I have your name and email address, make sure the two people that won, make sure I have your name and email address so my office can get in touch with you to learn how to send that scale to you. Or if you want to come by the office and pick it up, it'll be there. But I can send it to you so you don't have to get into your car at all. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys had a great time while being here. I had a great time in teaching you. And I'll see you all next week. And have a great weekend and do your resistance training. Take care. Bye-bye.